What's going on, everyone? My name's Eric, and today on the channel we're going to be doing a super sick guitar build. And there's obviously, like, when I'm saying something like that, you know, there's going to be a lot of like speculating on what it's going to be. You probably already have an idea what it's going to be based on the thumbnail, but honestly, I think when this thing is all said and done, especially with what I have that's going to be going into this guitar, I think this thing is going to be probably the coolest, like, super strat guitar, late 80s, early 90s super strat that has kind of walked through my own collection. And when you're doing a guitar build, it's all gonna boil down to where you want to start with it. You could start with a body blank, you could start with a pre-cut thing that you gotta finish, you can start with a neck, you could do the whole thing from scratch if you want, or you can get a fully built project like from like an actual reputable guitar brand and then just build it up yourself that's already finished and everything like that. That's pretty much where we're gonna start today, and obviously from the thumbnail, as you've seen. So the guitar we're gonna be using today is this really sweet thing. This is a late 80s, early 90s Fernandez Revolver FR65, made in Japan. And look at this thing. It's like magenta, purple. It's so 80s. I love it. Personally, this is like right up my alley, and it's a sweet guitar. This came right from Japan to my door. This was like a steal of a deal for a made in Japan guitar, and especially for a Fernandez, because that brand is more or less like filing for bankruptcy, or depending on when this video is going to go up, maybe they've already foreclosed, or who knows what's going to happen. They're kind of a legacy brand at this point, and they're always a brand that I've wanted to like try and like hang out with and live with, and what better way to do it than like kind of building it up to my own kind of specs. And this guitar pretty much showed up from Japan to my door like this. I did throw some strap pins in here just because I already had them, but it literally came with an output jack. It came with a little bit of wiring here. It came with the tremolo claw. Neck was bolted on, has the battery compartment here, because I guess maybe this had an active circuit at one point or something like that. Not 100% sure, but the fact that it came from Japan to Canada in a box, no case, and it seems like it's in pretty good shape outside of the, you know, the damage and the dents and dings that have been already photographed and on this guitar already. So yeah, showed up in one piece. Looks pretty sweet. I still can't get over the color. A little bit of paint chips on there, but whatever. I cleaned the fingerboard, hydrated the board, I cleaned up the frets as well, and I did take the truss rod cover off and messed with the truss rod just to make sure that it's working, and yes, it does move, so that is a total win as well. Sometimes you might not get so lucky with some of these husks. Usually when they are listed, they're usually listed as non-functioning, so you really have to go back and forth with the owner of the husk or whatever state the guitar is in just to make sure that everything is sort of working, or at least the truss rod's gonna work. There's no back plates on the guitar, which is a little unfortunate. I'm sure I can get one of these like for the trem cover on Amazon, but for the electronics here, that might be a bit of an uphill battle. But if I figure something out, I will do another video, or I'll include it in this one and show you how we do it. But otherwise, I'm excited to build this thing. Let's throw it on the bench and get started. The first thing that I want to deal with on this guitar is going to be the electronics here. As you can see, we got a couple wires already from how this guitar was shipped to me. I got the ground wire already wired up on the tremolo claw, and again, this is already in basically from factory when the guitar was built, so we're going to keep that in there. This is a battery cover. Maybe there was a Sustainiac system or something else like that in there. We're not going to throw any electronics or anything like that in there, so we're just going to keep that there for aesthetic. We got the original jack as well, and we're going to keep that. It doesn't seem like there's going to be any issues. At least I don't know if there are any until I wire it up. We got the red hot wire coming from here, from the battery terminal. We just have that taped off because we're not going to use it, and we just want to make sure that's not going to be touching any other exposed metal, potentially grounding out the circuit. We also have a jack plate, which I'm going to throw on there. That's going to be pretty straightforward and pretty easy. I just went through my parts bin just to get what I needed, but if you want to do this brand new, you can order all these parts for very cheap as well. I'm going to get some highlights on screen of me putting this all together, and I'll see you for the next bit. Alright, so here's the guitar so far. Output jack plate is on there, and the output jack is wired up to the electronics as it is so far. Not sure how I'm feeling about these volume knobs right here. Let me know your thoughts down below. I might change them by the time this video is done, but I don't know. I'm on the fence about them. We'll see if they stay or not. But of course this guitar is not done. We need an actual bridge and we need some pickups. So here we go. Custom pickups from Corrigan Pickups. You've seen them on the channel before. I've demoed a bunch of their sets. Go ahead and check them out. Shout out to Pad. He has sent over a bunch of pickups in the past. Long time, you know, channel partner. He's also a buddy as well. And once again, thanks for supplying these pickups. I'm stoked to try these. I basically just gave him a couple ideas, and he sent over some custom stuff, and I can't really talk about it, but I'm excited to throw these in the guitar. So let's open these up and let's see what we have in store here. I just sent him a picture of the guitar, and I'm like, make something cool that would look like good in this, and maybe not just like a standard black humbucker and single coils. Like, let's have some fun. So let's see what comes up. Full reveal. Look at that. This is something special that he's working on. I can't talk about it, but look at that. And we got the new Corrigan logo on the pickups too. Looks super sick. On the base plate it says Made in Canada. Another single coil. Got some chrome bobbins on there. That's gonna look kind of cool. And another one. Chrome bobbins as well. Can't really do this with the two single coils. It just kind of looks like a mess right now, and I don't feel like fishing wires right now, like on the couch. So yeah, you're gonna have to wait for this, but just as a quick refresh, that pink on magenta, this is gonna look really hot. Let's throw this on the bench, let's wire these pickups in. All right, so the single coils that came in the set weren't really marked neck, middle, or anything like that. They just have regular base plates on them. So what I'm gonna do is just test the impedance on them, just to see where they're sitting, and maybe see if one is maybe meant for the neck or the middle. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take some of these alligator clips, I'm gonna clip them to the ends of the wires on each of the pickups. You need to get a multimeter of some sort. What I'm gonna do, take it down all the way to the ohms section. I'm gonna take the red wire right here. I'm gonna clip it into the hot section, or the hot wire coming out of that pickup. Gonna do the same with the green alligator clip. That's going from the black wire, which is ground. Clip it in here. Let's try the other one. That is reading the 17.7 or so. Make sure those alligator clips are none of the metal touches, otherwise you're just gonna get 0 on your reading right here, and that's gonna cause some issues. But regardless of the impedance and the resistance that are coming out of your pickups, this is a quick way to test the resistance on your pickups to see maybe where it's gonna be best suited in your guitar. All right, so now we are gonna learn how to wire an import style switch, or something that you might find on like an Ibanez style guitar. We got 8 lugs down here. These are all different solder points right here. Right down here where I'm pointing with the screwdriver, this side or this side, these are either ground tabs. So what you're gonna do is take your ground wire from the actual electronic circuit here, wire it up here so the actual pickup switch is grounded with the rest of the circuit. Look for switches number 4 and 5. So if I count from right to left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Tabs number 4 and 5, which you have to jump, they are gonna be connected to the volume pot here. So I have this red wire here. This is going to be going just like that, right across the 2 wires, and I'm just going to kind of bridge them like that. Next up, this is the hot wire coming from the neck single coil. Again, humbucker single guitar. I'm going to wire this right into the first tab, right beside where we made the jump that goes to the volume pot. Next up, we have the middle pickup. This is the hot wire. We're going to wire it right here, right beside that neck pickup wire. Last but not least, we got the bridge humbucker right here. I'm just going to wire this in to the final slot right here. This also has 4 conductor wiring, so I'm just going to hop this in right to the back here from some of the diagrams that I've seen online. Next up, I got the green and bare wire from the humbucker, and then I have the 2 black ground wires from the middle and the neck pickup. I'm going to wire them all together and solder them down to either the backs of the volume pot or one of the side tabs on the switch. And that is pretty much how the guitar is going to be wired. All right, so the pickups are wired in, the guitar makes noise and everything like that. So let's just do a face reveal. Look at that. This thing looks absolutely stunning. This is like pure 80s, like lipstick and leather, shred, like, yeah. Looks so good. The pink on magenta, this looks really good. And again, shout out to Pad from Corrigan Pickups. Again, I can't talk too much about these pickups. They're kind of in development, so until they're totally finalized, we're just gonna leave it at this, and they're just gonna be some special Corrigan pickups as far as we know. And if you wanna learn more about the other Corrigan pickups, you can check out some of my other videos on the channel, or I'm gonna leave a link down in the description below. Check it out, learn about more of Corrigan's awesome pickups. So at this point, we pretty much need a bridge on this guitar, and as you can see here, this guitar has obviously been routed for like a double locking Floyd Rose style bridge. We got the 2 inserts here where the adjustment posts are going to be in. These came in right as I got the guitar, so I don't have to install them or rip them out or anything like that. So I basically just have to get a bridge that's going to fit here, and I'm going to have to get a nut for this. So now this might be a bit of a challenge, especially if you're trying to find like parts for some of these older Japanese guitars. and especially if you're trying to find a nut, since I did try and size up some other Floyd Rose style nuts, and it seemed like they were just a little bit larger than the actual space that is kind of routed out here from factory. So you might be up creek without a paddle at times like that. So keep that in mind if you are trying to like restore one of these old 90s and 80s Japanese guitars. But we're not in that situation where we have to go down the rabbit hole and spend way too much time on the internet trying to figure out what's actually going to work for this guitar. Today we're going to be using a bridge called the Mistress by my good friends at Rockin Tune. I want to shout out Carlos at Rockin Tune. He sent over the full-on Mistress conversion kit and with a couple extra parts as well so I can install it on this guitar. And if you don't know what the Rockin Tune trem system is, it's a patent pending tremolo design that kind of functions like a regular double locking tremolo, although this addresses one of the big issues that comes with any sort of double locking trem, and that is the fact that you can pretty well only use it for one tuning unless you take more or less the better part of a couple hours to kind of get it set up with new strings and new tunings and everything like that. All that is very time consuming, and if you don't really know what you're doing, you're gonna have to bring it in, spend more money, and have a tech do that for you. What the Rockin Tune system allows you to do is essentially change your strings and keep your bridge sitting flat and keep the intonation and everything all under 3 minutes. So I can go from a guitar in standard E tuning with the Rockin Tune system, change the strings to the recommended gauges for the recommended tunings. Let's say I'm going to drop C or I'm going all the way down to drop A on a 6 string, and the bridge is going to stay flat, it's going to be in tune, and it's going to be intonated. I've dealt with a lot of guitars that have double locking trem systems on them, and a lot of the guitars in my personal collection have them just because that's the nature of the guitars that I own. And that is a thing, like I usually have one guitar for every tuning based on the guitars that have double locking trems. This pretty much solves that issue where I can change strings and change tunings, and I essentially skip so many steps that come with changing strings and tunings and all those things on a regular double locking trem. I'm going to leave a link in the description so you can check this out in a bit more detail, but otherwise let's open this up and let's install it. There we go. We have some install guides, we got some resources here. 1 year warranty, that's really good. Little install guide, this is gonna show you how you set up the bridge and the nut on this guitar as well. All right, now let's get this off here. And here is a ton of parts to get us going with the Rockin Tune Mistress system. Here's the base plate. Has the same 3 mounting screws for the block, which is also brass right from the factory. Looks like the top parts of the bridges are just going to kind of sit and slide in the back here. I'm going to test that in a second just to check. The tremolo arm actually screws in and locks in place. We got the little set screw there. Really nice touch there. We then have the top part. Look at all of that brass. Intonation screws right here. This is where you lock the strings in by the looks of it. Looks like this is where you're going to tune it as well. So it seems like we kind of got sort of a headless design here with like a tune-o-matic style piece right here. We also get this screwdriver here, like again from the factory. Really nice touch that they're providing you with the tools to actually be successful with their hardware. Unlike some companies out there that give you hardware and nothing really to work with. We have, again, 3 interchangeable systems here. We have 3 nuts here. This is the mounting plate that one of the nuts comes pre-mounted on. And it looks like in here, these are, yeah, kind of like a headless system here. We got an Allen wrench insert here. You're going to insert the string in there, lock it down, and I think that is pretty much it for the most part. Also comes with the tremolo bar, again black. This black and brass hardware combination looks really good. Fits into place, looks really good. Yeah, and it just seems like this is really solid. It looks like it's probably going to be held together with string tension. So I'm assuming you're just going to be switching out the nut from the base plate here and this top part from the base plate, and I think that's how you're going to be able to change the strings so fast on this Rockin Tune bridge and literally just have the whole thing stay in tune. Really good first impression so far. All right, so now we're about to install the Rockin Tune bridge and nut, but we've ran into a little bit of an issue, and I do want to make this as a bit of a disclaimer if you are going to get the Rockin Tune bridge. Now, the Rockin Tune bridge can fit into pretty well any style of Floyd Rose or Ibanez Edge style bridge, whether it's licensed or the original style product. On the contrary, the nut that comes with the Rockin Tune Mistress bridge is slotted and fit for the original Floyd Rose nut. And the original Floyd Rose nut is much larger by comparison to the licensed by Floyd Rose nut that I've seen on a lot of import style guitars. The other thing with this particular Fernandez guitar is that the shelf where the actual Floyd Rose or the locking nut is going to be sitting That is also very shallow and very narrow by comparison to an actual Floyd Rose nut, or at least the Rockin Tune nut that we're going to be using today as well. So I called up Carlos, the owner, and we walked through a couple different solutions, and what I'll be doing is sanding down the nut shelf as flat as I can, essentially so most of the wood is not showing. And you would have to do this if you're converting your licensed by Floyd Rose nut to an original Floyd Rose nut, regardless of the R spacing or the R size. I also recommend measuring and using some calipers to get your measurements precise on this. When you're taking this down, you want to make sure that the 0 fret or the back part of the Rockin Tune Mistress nut is sitting around 20 thousandths of an inch higher than the very first fret of the guitar. And that's how you're going to have the guitar playing as best as it will be when you are installing the Rockin Tune nut and the bridge. You can also see the original screw mounting holes that hold the original locking nut on that Fernandez guitar. They're not going to line up exactly with the Rockin Tune Mistress like pilot holes and what's actually machined in the nut. What I'm going to have to do is dowel those existing holes that are in the nut shelf, re-drill them, and then put some new screws in, and then we're going to be good to go. This is a little bit more advanced as there are some more steps. There's a lot of fine details that go into this, and you do have to go really slow, especially when you are sanding down that nut shelf. It's always easy to take away material, but it's pretty hard to add it back, especially in this case here. Go slow with it. If you don't trust yourself, there's no sweat with that. Take it into a tech and a trusted luthier, and they're going to get you going. The customer service has also been really amazing from Carlos to me and just helping me get this product on my guitar. I do want to say this is just more so a reflection of the guitar that I'm dealing with, and this is just some things you have to deal with as a guitar tech and if you are going to be installing new parts on your guitar. Alright, now here is the nut fully installed. The brass and the black look really good against this magenta color and a little bit of this gold in the Fernandez logo here. Looks really good. Was pretty straightforward to install. It did take some time. Sanding down the original nut shelf so the Rockin Tune Mistress nut could sit properly was the most time consuming part. Once you sand this down properly, the rest is pretty easy. I then doweled the original mounting screw holes that came with this guitar from factory. I just poked some holes into the nut shelf with just like an X-Acto knife, just so I can get a template of where the actual screws are going to go. The screws were really nice on this as well. They're not too large, so again, you don't have to worry about cutting them down, or you don't have to worry about them poking through the back here. Really nice attention to detail there. You then just have to get a drill. You then measure it up and size it up with the actual screw that's going into the guitar. Tape off the length of the screw on the drill bit, and then you just simply drill in, screw it in. I had to take the brass part out just so I could screw the actual nut plate down. Rockin Tune is also going to give you a screwdriver, which you're then going to throw into the back here, as you're going to see on screen. Screw it down, put it back in, and then you are good to go. At this point, let's throw the bridge on and let's get this thing rolling. Take the base plate of the Rockin Tune Mistress system. This comes pre-made right out of the box here with a nice brass block for that really great tone and sustain. I'm then just going to simply put it in here. Next up, I'm going to flip the guitar over, and I'm then going to put some springs in the back of the trem system. I'm just going to install one spring here. This is just going to keep the bridge kind of in place and not going anywhere when I'm installing the rest of the components for the bridge. Rockin Tune is also going to give you a tremolo bar. It just screws in right here. There's also a back part here which allows you to lock it. So the next part here is making sure that the bridge is going to be sitting level when you're ready to install the top part of the Rockin Tune Mistress system on the back of the bridge here. They will give you this bridge stabilizer here that has an adjustment piece right here which you can adjust with an Allen wrench, and you're just going to make your adjustments on this piece right here just so the bridge is actually sitting flat. This is going to make your life way easier when you are installing the top component of the bridge here, and then you're going to have a much easier time setting up the guitar, getting it in tune, and ultimately using the Rockin Tune Mistress system in this particular context. Once your bridge is set up flat, you're going to spin the guitar over again, and you're going to install the remaining springs on your guitar. So at this point, we are ready to string up our guitar that has the Rockin Tune Mistress double locking trem system. They have sent over some strings for me to use from Stringjoy. No affiliation, no sponsor or anything. They sent these over because these are the recommended gauges that they recommend you using with the Rockin Tune system if you want it to work as they have intended to. Being able to change the strings in like 3 minutes, different tunings, different gauges, and the bridge is sitting completely flat. They have a wide variety of strings on their website that are calculated for the exact tunings and particular string tension that you would like on your Rockin Tune bridge. But if you don't want to use the recommended gauges and strings that are on Rockin Tune's website with their product, that's totally fine as well. You could use any sort of gauges and tunings. The only thing is that when you use the non-recommended strings, that it's just going to act like a regular double locking trem system where the bridge is either going to be on an upward angle or a downward angle when you put those new strings on and get it up to tune and everything like that. So you will have to spend some extra time, as you would with any other double locking trem, when you change the string. So I don't recommend doing that because that defeats the whole purpose and the intention of the Rockin Tune bridge. I have 3 sets here. I'm going to use one of them here. I'm going to throw them on. I'm going to show you how to string it up. I'm then going to make another video that will show you how easy it is to swap strings and tunings between the Rockin Tune bridge pieces. So at this point, we are going to start stringing up the Rockin Tune Mistress bridge. I have the top mounting bridge component right here. I have some strings. We're going to put this guitar in E flat or D sharp standard. We are going to be starting with the low E string here. This is a 9.5 to a 44 gauge set. What I'm going to do is take this 2mm screwdriver that Rockin Tune provides. I'm then going to unscrew the saddle. I'm going to put it to the side where I know where it's going to be. I'm then going to cut the ball end off of the string. I'm then going to insert the string right through where that string hole is. And then I'm going to take my screwdriver with that Allen wrench piece here. Screw that down. I can feel that. That's not going anywhere. You just want to clamp it down just snug, just so it's holding there. You do want to be really careful with the E, B, and G strings because they are obviously plain strings, and you want to make sure you're not going to actually break them by accident. So do be very careful when you're tightening these down at the bridge down here and at the nut. All right, now for the E, G, and B string, you are going to be taking out the saddle pieces right here, just as you normally would. The only difference is that under these actual black screw pieces here, you have these little pads. You want to make sure these 2 pieces here are out before you are stringing the E, G, and B strings on your guitar. You're going to put your string in first, then you're going to put the silver part on top of the string, and then you're going to tighten it down with the black piece right here. This is very crucial. It's only going to be on the high E, B, and G string, so make sure you're doing that in that order when you're restringing those strings on your guitar. All right, now we're ready to put the actual top part of the bridge right onto the bass plate, just like that. We're going to leave that stabilizer in because that's keeping our bridge flat. At this point, I'm going to loosen the pieces at the nut here. You can also keep them somewhere safe because they are very small. I'm then going to pass the strings through and then feed it into the tuner. You're then going to repeat this process for every other string on your guitar. Get it tuned up to the recommended pitch and tuning for the particular strings that you have, and then you're going to be on to the next part. Same thing as before with all of the plain strings on the guitar. There is going to be a little silver or a brass pad that has to go in here, so make sure you insert the silver or the brass pad onto the string before you actually insert the last part here that will tighten it all down. Alright, so at this point we are pretty much done. The guitar is in tune, the bridge is sitting flat, and I actually adjusted the action just as I would for any sort of double locking Floyd Rose style or Ibanez Edge style trem. Using these adjustment pieces down here with an Allen wrench, took the action down to where I like it. Remove this, put it somewhere safe, or put it back in the box. Once you've done this, what you want to do is now check the intonation. I did that off camera, and I'm not going to lie to you, this guitar is perfectly intonated, but if you did have to adjust it, it's going to be these pieces down here. You're going to be taking this screwdriver here. You're then going to be inserting it to these pieces right down here. It's going to be very similar to like a Tune-o-matic style bridge, and you would adjust these saddles either forwards or backwards in relation to whether the note at the 12th fret is either sharp or flat in relation to the note you are playing when you're playing an open string. Next up, we're going to take this screwdriver. We're then going to tighten all of these pieces right here at the nut. Very similar to clamping down the strings at the nut if you have like a Floyd Rose style guitar. Once again, you don't want to go too hard with these. You want to just get them kind of thumb tight, if you will, or finger tight. You're then going to check the tuning after, and then you're going to make any sort of necessary adjustments right down here on these fine tuners. At this point, what we're going to do is now release all of the tension on the tuner. As you can hear, I'm playing the note and the string is unwinding. And it's staying in tune. You can't see my tuner, but I can see it, and it's staying in tune. I'm going to do this for every string, and then I'm going to cut all of the leftover strings right here once they are fully loose, and making sure all of the strings past the nut are going to be in tune. All right, at this point, the guitar is fully done. The electronics are in, the bridge is in, the nut is in, and let's check it out. Look at that. This is so 80s. I love it. Look at this thing. The strings are all cut off and they are locked right at the nut. We're going to be doing all of our tuning down here. It's kind of like sort of the best of both worlds of like almost like a speed loader and like a Floyd Rose and like a few other different systems here. This is super cool. I'm really excited to spend some time with this, especially because they give you a brass block from factory. Very sweet as well. Got those new Corrigan pickups in. Again, I can't talk too much about them. They are sort of secret prototypey stuff that we got going on here, so stay tuned for those later on down the road. But yeah, all wired up. It makes noise. This guitar is also fully intonated after just putting a brand new set of strings on it. I haven't really had that happen on most of my guitars, unless I'm like keeping the same string gauges and tunings, but I couldn't tell you when this guitar was last strung up, and to have a guitar fully intonated and the bridge is actually where it's supposed to be right from the factory, that's pretty nice. So that's a really good first impression with the Rockin Tune system here. I don't really know the specs on this guitar too much. I mean, I'm sure you could probably Google the Fernandez F65 or whatever the particular model name is of this. Outside of me assuming that the body is probably made of alder, it's probably a 25.5-inch scale, rosewood board, maple neck from what I saw from sanding down the nut shelf here. Yeah, I couldn't really tell you much else about it. Outside of that, it is pretty freaking sweet, especially with how it looks now. Yeah, no back covers, you know, that's something we'll look at down the road. Otherwise, it's super sick. 5-way switch, volume, tone, custom pickups, Rockin Tune mistress system. It's kind of looking like a headless up here. On the back here, you got like this upper access heel right here, and like this guitar is from like late 80s, early 90s, and to give you an idea, like Fender started doing this like kind of contoured heel in like, at least to my knowledge, when the Jim Root Signature Telly came out in like 2008. So to give you an idea of kind of how far advanced maybe some of the Japanese innovators were with guitar designs here. Like, very cool, very nice to see this on such an older guitar. Really stoked with how this guitar turned out, and there's nothing else to do except plug it in. wrap things up. We built the guitar, we got it all wired, we got the new bridge in, we got it set up and dialed in, we heard the guitar, we learned a little bit about Fernandez and unfortunately where they are as a company right now, but I gotta say, I'm just stoked on how this whole project kind of turned out here. Again, I had like no expectations going into it. I was in contact with Carlos from Rockin Tune. We were talking about getting a bridge, and I didn't really know what I wanted to throw this particular bridge on. So I thought, why don't we do a build? And of course, if you're buying a guitar sight unseen, you're just kind of hoping for the best. And I think I do have to do a little bit of work to the frets on this guitar, but that'll be for a later time. But again, I gotta say, I am like over the moon, like just blown away about how awesome this whole project turned out. The pickups sound awesome. Again, from Corrigan. I had no expectations going into it. He just said, hey, I got these for you. And I'm like, sure. If it's humbucker single, and I kind of like this sound in the bridge, let's do it. At this point, the tuners are there for a show, and it kind of looks cool that we have this like faux headless, like almost like speed loader design here. Super cool. Gotta say, Rockin Tune bridge, super sick. And I do want to say, like, the usability and the features on this bridge, it kind of reminds me of a regular Floyd Rose meets like a Tune-o-matic with how you intonate and how the strings are sitting back here, mixed with like a speed loader, and just the string changing system on it is just bar none like groundbreaking in my opinion. I will say the fine tuners back here, these have a really good range of motion and you don't really have to move them that far to change the pitch, so be mindful of that, unlike some other Floyd Rose style guitars where you really got to crank on those fine tuners to really get your guitar in tune. There was a little bit of a learning curve for myself, and I hope I documented it well enough for you all just to kind of see that it does take some time. There are some extra steps, especially with shaving down the nut shelf there just so the actual nut can sit there. But yeah, this guitar is like a perfect storm in my opinion. From the hot magenta to the pink pickups to this crazy new bridge, like, and the 24 fret, super strat shred machine, like, this is a really sweet project. And if you are watching these videos like for some sort of inspiration, or you just like watching people build things, like, I hope this does inspire you to like at least learn the basics of like how to wire a guitar, or at least how to set the action, or at least inspires you to like try something new, put some new pickups in, try a different bridge. You got an old bridge that isn't working, put a new one in, try it from a new company. And again, this is why I'm here. I want to show you these new cool products, and hopefully they can get them into your hands as well. And obviously we have a little bit of fun along the way and do some untraditional things like this. Once again, shout out to Corrigan Pickups and Rockin Tune Bridges for giving me the pickups and the bridges, obviously, to make this whole project come to life. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I got tons more videos like this, doing guitar builds, doing guitar deep dives, and other guitar related topics. And if you are a returning subscriber, make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss a single video that I upload. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you next time.